My name is Rick Fogarty. I work for Ancestry Genealogist, and I am a third-generation genealogist. I'm a citizen of the Muscogee Creek Nation. It's been my passion. It was a hobby, and it turned into a career. When I was adopted, and I am an adoptee. I was adopted in '77 before the Indian Child Welfare Act. So I was adopted by non-native parents, and but they knew that I was Creek, and so they raised me with knowing that, and I had to do all the research on my own and learn about it. And the older I got, my mother and my grandmother were both genealogists. So I had it not only I had it around me all the time. So it was something that I put it off for a long time, and I finally went, hey, this is pretty cool. I need to check this out. So when I got older and started getting to learning about my adoption and breaking that open, I started uncovering my biological parents and started looking at more of the Mvskoke Creek for me, but that was always there. So when I talked to my biological mother, she told me everything I needed to know, and that was just it. I had already started doing professional genealogy, helping other people, and it just exploded and turned into a full-time career. So I love helping people solve mysteries. I mean, I'm a detective kind of by nature, and that's one of the neat things is helping people solve complex problems. Who's my great-grandfather? I didn't know who he was, and trying to solve those things. And now with DNA testing blowing up, you can't turn on the TV without seeing a DNA test commercial on TV. That's made it a lot easier for us to solve some of these problems. So that's the gratifying part for me, is helping people solve those mysteries. Now it comes with the downside. I mean, there are some of those mysteries that when you find out that information, what do you do with it? How do you contact people who didn't, this was a surprise to them. When they took the test, they didn't realize I'm going to find out surprises about my family. So it does come with a bit of a caveat of you've got to be careful with that, but that's the rewarding part for me, and especially with my own research. Just knowing where I come from, who I am, and again with my roots. I mean, it's not only is there, I've got my Indian side, I've got some African American, I've got English on one side, I've got French Huguenots on another. So it's just where do you come from? Sure. So, the political stuff I kind of try to stay out of, because I mean, people speak out of turn, and I've seen that in my career with a lot of when college application time happens, I get people wanting, people coming to me to find their great-grandfather, find their Indian ancestor so they can get benefits, and that's it sends up a red flag for me when I see that. Do you just want to find it for that reason, or are you looking to find it for your own knowledge and for your cultural reasons, for your roots? So when it gets to those giant political issues like that, there's a lot of people right now, and I'm not one of those people, but there are some very adamant people who will call those people out, and I think that's a good thing, because we do need to keep people in check, that they're not riding the coattails. They're not saying, hey, I'm from Oklahoma, and I've got that. There's a paper trail that goes back with that, and that's to answer your question a little further. The documentation is great, and one of the things that I really like about the tribes is there's a lot of cultural activism right now to keep those records, to preserve those records and make sure that we're keeping the history, especially with the language programs and everything like that. Those are important because when you go back and look at the rolls prior to the Dawes roll in 1906, you start looking at these rolls from 1820s, 1830s, they're in the Muscogee language, and the names are phonetically spelled. So trying to look at how those names, how to pronounce the names, how to say the names, and what we're keeping the language alive, that goes hand in hand. We need that in order to understand the records. So we don't want to see the language go away, because we need speakers. And the other thing is just those family lines. There's the common Creek names that we see, and it starts. I was just talking about this on the interview on the radio, was how those families mix together. Is there going to be one giant Mvskoke Creek family that we start to see, especially with tribal towns, and how do those tribal towns make up particular families, where they came from. So you might have the Harjos here, the Tigers here, the Barnetts, the Escos, there's McIntoshes. I mean, there's any number of places that those families are going to come from, and did that tribal town, whether it was in Indian territory or whether it was in southeastern United States, in Georgia and Alabama, where those tribal towns, are those part of a bigger family line. So that's kind of where I think things are. You get into that kind of deep genealogy, and it becomes a really big mystery, and that's what we're working on. So, well, I grew up in Oklahoma. I just moved to Jersey at the first of the year, and it's been a big culture shock for me. But one of the things that I've grown to appreciate is the way that tribes are, the way that we have such a unique approach to our tribal life with the nation, and the way that they really support the citizens compared to other places around the country. With services, just the language program we were talking about, and even just the culture, preserving the culture. So one of the things that I'm excited about, and again, it goes back to the kind of the controversy of DNA testing, and I was talking about this a little bit earlier, was the word disenrollment. If the government decides they want to do something, they're going to do it. If whatever happens is going to happen no matter what. But I encourage people to do DNA testing really for the benefit of knowing their family, for your own hobby, for the genealogy. I was talking about, I have some friends who are Cheyenne and Arapaho, and I saw 100% test, and I've got another friend who's 50%. And one of the neat things about that is there's this myth that Indians don't test. They don't do DNA tests because they don't want to know, whatever, insert whatever myth. And they had way more matches than I had on my test, and I'm going, man, this is 100%. This debunks the myth that Indians don't test. So for whatever personal reason, you don't have to test. There are lots of things you can opt out on for a lot of the testing companies. So make sure and read the terms, and don't listen to the hype. There's a lot of hype out there. The DNA isn't, you can't use it for enrollment right now. The tribe takes, they only take documentation, and that's fine. So I encourage people to take those tests just for the fun of it. If you've got a quantum on your card, take the test and see what it says compared with that. Now, the ethnicity estimates they're estimates, and we got to keep them that way. But it's a lot of fun to look at, and it's a good hobby. It's you find yourself at 4 o'clock in the morning, searching through your match list, going, I've got to wake up for work the next day, and I can't put this down. So it definitely, you'll get bit by the bug. So that's what I encourage people to do, is if you're going to do it, get into it as a hobby and just have fun with it. So.